Hello and welcome to Making a Metaverse. This is the podcast where we break down the process of making a metaverse. We can do that because we are doing it ourselves. More on that in the description below. As always, I'm joined by the smartest man in blockchain, Robbie Cochran. That is smart.
I know. I just learned the words that you repeat at the start of every single one of these podcasts.
Actually, I enjoyed that, Rob, to be fair. And I just want to say thank you so much for doing this week. You know, I know you're busy. I know you've got big personal news coming up. You don't have to tell me about it because I know it's super personal and you're a private guy. Okay, but everyone just say, everyone knows he's getting, ankle extensioning.
Ankle extensioning?
Ankle extending surgery.
What does that even exist?
It does.
You watch too much Bakke. That happens in Bakke. Have you seen Bakke?
No.
There's a guy in Bakke that gets all of his limbs extended.
I've seen it in the sun. A couple short people get their legs sort of.
That's exactly what I would have thought would have happened to you from seeing you as a child or teenager to now.
I did actually go through a growth spurt, to be fair.
Yeah.
Between sort of 16 and 18, I was probably maybe 5'3", 5'4". Then I'm now 6'5", 6'6". So just really, really crazy.
And now everybody knows anytime you say anything about size that you're always going to be adding a few inches on. So, you know.
Well, people can't see me stand up here, so they don't know. It could be true.
About 6'1".
We should take a picture of me with a ruler or something and people can just get a sense of the scale. So, Rob, have you heard the news?
What news?
Taylor Swift has released tour dates for the UK next year. How'd you feel about that?
Yay, Taylor.
It actually got me thinking, right? Because I was thinking, everyone's going to try and get tickets, yeah? I'm going to try and get tickets. I'm going to try and go wherever she is in Europe. I'm going to get those tickets.
That does not surprise me.
I'm a Swiftie. But I'm just thinking, people that can't get tickets got me thinking about the Metaverse. Do you think there's a sort of use case here for people that can't get tickets to something like Taylor Swift to be able to still go to an immersive type concert, virtual showing of it in the Metaverse? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, great chat. Okay, and so Rob,
I'll elaborate. Is that what you want? Do you want complex sentences?
Well, if you could,
that's how you get your ears in English.
If you could, yeah. Dead air.
I'm thinking. I am constructing sentences. Good old Taylor. Well, okay. Look, studies. Case studies, examples. I'm just
these are not complex sentences.
No, these are just single words, aren't they?
Just single words. This is the episode that's going to get us cancelled.
Yeah. Okay. There's already proof of this. It's still a simple sentence. God damn it. There's already examples that this has occurred elsewhere in other similar platforms. That's fucking complex sentence right there. Roblox and Fortnite, right? I've done virtual concerts, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that Ariana Grande had one of them, but I am also fairly confident, and you might have the stats on this, which is perhaps why you're asking me this question, that the virtual shows outperformed in terms of sales and revenue the actual live events themselves, both because of ticket demands, but also probably because of the inclusivity of the virtual events. I.e., for example, and I'm sure there's millions of people around the world, probably even billions. For example, because of geographical kind of considerations, travel, flights, whatever it would be, which add X, Y, Z onto the cost. B, if somebody has got some sort of disability that can be both physical and or could be a mental health kind of challenge at the time. Loads and loads of different things. We know that anxiety is a big problem for large proportions of civilization these days. It's, we won't get into the reasons why that is, but I think when you actually consider all of these different, you can even pay attention to me.
Oh, sorry, I drifted off.
Ask for complex sentences and it just disappears, isn't it?
I was a million miles away, honestly.
When you consider all those micro factors, I think that it's clear that there is a definite audience and appetite for virtual concerts and the likes.
Yeah, so for me, like, if you can't get a ticket, it'd be great to be able to like extend extend the capacity in some sort of virtual arena.
Well, they did some really cool kind of. Was it like I'm not sure if the words are right here. Augmented reality. No, I'm not even sure if augmented reality is the right word.
AR.
No, it's more like a. Sorry, I'm just getting my mints. A digital thing.
Oh, yeah, good one, Ash. That's a good idea.
A digital. Come on, the Michael Jackson experience obviously is
like ABBA Voyage.
That's it, right? Now they were hugely popular, right?
Is that the metaverse? Is that, you could say that's the metaverse? I suppose.
Well, I mean, you could also say toilet roll is the metaverse if you had a strong enough argument for it, such as the bullshit that comes out of people's mouths nowadays. But it's certainly digital. And if everything digital is the metaverse, which is not true, and I know you're going to talk about misconceptions right now at some point in this show because you prepped me for it, like a good boy that you are.
Thanks, boss.
I would argue it's not the metaverse in terms of like, those ABBA and Michael Jackson kind of experiences. That's more like a digital experience. But there are kind of links, right? Physical, digital. Phygital is very popular buzzword in the kind of metaverse area. So perhaps there are some links there. But without doubt, from my understanding, those experiences were super popular. And as far as I am aware, the actual pure digital experiences that occurred on like Roblox and Fortnite were also super, super popular and did very, very well from a sales perspective.
Yeah, I can see that, Rob. I can see that.
Google it.
Well, I don't have internet here.
What's the point of having that in front of you then?
That's got all my just drawings of you have done.
Ask ChatGPT.
In other news, Rob, the other big news, I suppose, in the sort of entrepreneurial world is that Elon Musk has agreed to fight Mark Zuckerberg. Have you seen this?
No.
You have seen it?
No.
You have?
No.
You have?
No.
What?
No.
You want to get on the internet once in a while, buddy.
I would love to, but I'm too busy managing people.
I thought you were going to say masturbating then.
Plus, I'd just get you to
look at the internet
for
work,
you.
Yeah, look at the internet for you.
You do internet.
So Elon Musk has agreed to fight Mark Zuckerberg in a fight. Basically, they've come out and said,
"What, like fist fight?
Like fist fight? In reality,
wow.
And I just wonder who do you think's going to win?
Well, hasn't Zuckerberg been doing like MMA for a while?
Yeah.
I mean, look, part of me like really wants Elon to win, but at the end of the day, if you are fighting fit and have been training in MMA, and you versus somebody who has done nothing, the smart money would probably go on.
He's a bigger bloke, though, isn't he? Elon Musk is a different weight class.
I don't care. You're a different weight class from me, but I know I'd back again.
Rob would win. Yeah.
But seriously, like, I mean, look at what was it? Logan Paul had that fight against Mayweather as well, didn't they? They're all just show fights anyway. Like, there'll be terms about if you bust my lip, I can get $1 billion off you. It's like, no actual punching with the knuckles, only slapsies, bullshit like this. So it's all nonsense. But Logan Paul fought Mayweather, and Mayweather looked like half the size of the man. He still boshed him around the ring, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, yeah. I just thought that's a really interesting headline to wake up to. It's proper Black Mirror like type headline that is. Like, what is the world coming to that those two are...
Like the Prime Minister fucks a pig sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that happened, didn't it? Yeah. What David Cameron was, I think, in a party or something where he might have had sex with a pig. His head. Something like that.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not. Does anyone else remember that? I think David Cameron, or it might be Boris Johnson, one of them, they were at a party and there was a pig's head, and I think part of the initiation of it was to, put your member in a pig's mouth. Sheep.
Yeah, trust you to know this. I have no further comment.
Yeah, we'll get the video up if you want. No, okay, yeah.
This is going to have to be tagged as like, adult content, I think.
Before we get started,
What was it? No, go back to the thing before. What was you talking about?
Pigs. We're talking about pigs.
No, we were about to move on from that.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, but there was like a tie-in at the back.
Well, maybe like, if you didn't get phone calls.
Yeah, but it's like you have to put a comma there and then complete the complex sentence.
We've already learned that
supplementary
you cannot
information.
do complex sentences today. That's not
I've
your
been
skill.
doing plenty of complex sentences since the start. I just needed a little bit of a shock, like Frankenstein.
I've got before. That
was a simile.
We got some fan mail, Rob, and I just want to talk us through it. You know, so people have emailed in and said they love the show and they love. Yeah. I've had a couple of people message me and say, you know, just want to say I love the show, and I think it's worth saying because we don't say it
Is
enough.
that your sister and your mum?
Well, it's just it's a chap called Tom from Leicester. You know, he's just he loves it. He loves to listen to you. He thinks you're a great guy. He thinks you're very
the
smart.
Smartest man in blockchain.
Yeah, exactly. He's aged 11, so that's your demographic.
11-year-olds are smart these days.
And actually, I got sent a photo. I think I sent you it of us on the big screen. Someone was projecting us onto their living room wall.
Oh yes, I did see that.
Yeah.
It was one of our close friends.
Yeah, that was cool. So you know, just thought we need to highlight that some people like the show. Okay. Okay then, Rob. So enough about your personal life. That we've been talking about you for too long there. You know, get over yourself. Let's start talking about the metaverse. So what I've noticed in the last couple of months, right, is everyone talks to me about the metaverse. Like,
can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Are you going for one of those necks that sort of starts like up there and then connects to your shoulders?
What do you mean?
You know, like one of those guys that has no neck, but like a muscle from there to there.
do you know what I've noticed?
It doesn't matter what your name is.
Do you know what I've noticed, right? You've actually, since I've sort of shaved my head voluntarily, it's not, you know, a bold thing. No offense to any boldies out there. Like, no, oh, sorry, yeah, there's Baldy in the room. Cringe. That's why he wears a hat. Okay.
You need to fucking hat on.
What I've noticed is actually my neck looks a lot bigger all of a sudden. Like I look like this. My neck's really strangely wide. I don't know what's going on. I mean, you're right. I've got a big neck head.
It's because you don't, you know, run and work out your legs, but you just work your shoulders and your arms.
I actually do a lot of leg work.
Yeah,
I do quite a lot of leg work.
What's your 5K time?
I don't run, Rob.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's my point.
Running is a waste of time. You can put that in
no one ever.
It's bad for your heart. It's boring. It's boring. You got to admit.
What was the next question?
It was okay. So the topic of this podcast is all about misconceptions in the metaverse. Okay? So this is where people should tune in if they want to actually talk about the metaverse.
Are we talking about playtest?
We will do later on. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the kind of start of the conversation about the topic and the subject of the podcast, aka metaverse.
Misconceptions of the metaverse.
What I found, Rob, is a lot of times people talk to me in public over the last couple of months. Everyone talks to me about the metaverse.
People talk to you in public about it.
Yeah. Or, you know, people like, I know, always, it's the first, when people hear you work in the metaverse, that's all they want to talk to you about. You know, metaverse, video games, like, piss off, you know. Yeah. I'm not just yeah, exactly. And I'm like, what's that?
The world's smallest violin playing just for you.
So yeah, people
my job's so interesting. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, they're like, oh, metaverse this, and everyone gets it wrong. So it's just a game. It's just Grand Theft Auto. You know, it sounds like this, it sounds like that. So what I want to do is clear up some of the misconceptions around the metaverse for everyone listening.
Nearly got cramps. Sorry. That's from my run yesterday. I'm not even joking. Actually,
how fast did you do it in?
21:39 yesterday.
That is such a lie. You got your little metaverse speed boost.
My best time in the recent year or two is 21:19. So I was 20 seconds off that.
That's quite. I mean, that's very fast. I think, especially your little legs. Like you've been running like double strides compared to
me. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I suppose.
My fastest time is probably about 24.5 minutes for some context there. So
average.
What are you running from?
What do you mean?
Like, why are you running so fast?
Don't know. Easy, innit?
Well, if that's the only exercise you do a week, I suppose it can't be that difficult.
I do 2 or 3 5Ks a week.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, Rob, 5 misconceptions about the metaverse. You're the smartest man in blockchain. Let's put the record straight. And we can cut this up into 5 different videos as well.
Okay.
# content, # marketing. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, misconception number 1, Rob, is that, and this is probably the biggest one, I sort of mentioned it a second ago, the metaverse is a video game. Is the metaverse a video game? Yes or no?
Inagio.
Inagio. I told you, I come up with that.
I read everything, I'm so smart.
Inagio is a great name for our business.
It's a great name for our business. I'm so smart.
You reminded me when we first met, actually, Rob. So, I don't know if anyone, if we told this story before, but if not, I'm going to repeat it, because when we first met Rob, he was cool. Or, he came across as cool anyway. He was drinking, climbing up lampposts.
Oh, so cool. You drink so much.
But, he was an absolute legend of, we were like, oh, this guy is the coolest guy ever. So we decided finally to invite him to into our room, to go, let's play some games with us, right? This is true. So Rob had been this cool kind of out of reach guy, like Leo Gallagher. He was the first year of uni.
I had cool hair.
Yeah, well, now it's completely grey. Actually, no.
At least I've got hair.
Yeah, good one. Voluntarily. So we invited him back to our sort of, to our room. This sounds weird. To play some games, computer games and stuff. And we were like, oh, he's cool, sort of thing. And then during the games, Rob, we sort of had to do a double take. We're like, why do we invite this guy? Because every time he was playing this game, he was sort of he was winning on the game because he's a nerd. He was like, screw you, dickhead, screw you, man, screw you.
Cartman.
It was just speaking like Cartman. And it was the most embarrassing. We were sort of looking at each other who the fuck is this guy? Why is he in our flat?
The actual ending to this was actually one of the lads went, he's one of us. It's fine.
No, I think we might have told that story now. Now I hear that again. But always good to bring up. But your true colours always come through, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, is the Metaverse a video game?
Inagio.
It's not a game. It's not a game.
It's not a game.
So, okay, so let me ask you a common question I get is, okay, the Metaverse, it just looks like Grand Theft Auto. What difference is it from Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto?
Oh God, I mean, where do you start? Let's just start with, say, maybe 3 of the key principles as to why. I don't even know if I can do that. First of all, Grand Theft Auto is a curated experience based on centralized, game designer and producer decisions, right? Game director, producers, designers, all of them. And it's their curated experience for what Grand Theft Auto is. It's the experience is a game experience where, you do certain missions, you murder people, you jack cars or whatever. It's got a one fundamental concept that surrounds it. So 1, it's centralized. B, it's very curated. And I guess C, I would say that there's no, I might be doing them a disservice slightly here, but really there's no sort of community input. There might be community mods perhaps now, I'm sure there probably is, but fundamentally it doesn't affect the monetization layers. It doesn't affect the economy of the game, for example.
So let me. What I really liked, actually, I think was the clearest thing that you said there was around the curated experience. You're being driven down a certain path with Grand Theft Auto. And actually, when you think about our own metaverse and our own things that we've done, it's it's up to people to make their own way in the metaverse, do what they want to do, create what they want to create, do whatever the F they want, essentially. But in Grand Theft Auto, you've clearly got a goal, and that is, get money, slay prozzies, shoot people, etc.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, we could obviously deep dive more reasons as to why it's a game and not a metaverse. But I think, fundamentally it's those 3 things. You can go further than that. You can talk about active governance from the community. You can talk about the ability to deploy experiences, business ideas from the community. You can talk about the provable ownership layers of the assets and so on, which won't exist in centralized platforms. You can talk about the lean or the significance of the social experience and the exploratory experiences. You can embed educational experiences into metaverse platforms and so on, none of which is particularly part of, what is the curated game experience of Grand Theft Auto.
And do you know what I would say, right, as well? I think one of the things that I say back to people in response to that question is if you play GTA 5 or whatever it is, I think it's GTA 5, and you sort of get involved in that, like you say, everything is owned by Rockstar. Everything is built, all the shops and buildings and everything there has been put there by Rockstar.
Yeah.
But if you think about the metaverse, it could be the kind of same sort of world platform, but then everything is owned by everyone that's exploring in it, kind of thing.
Right.
So everyone, the content is created by the users, and it's not Rockstar who are just have complete ownership of that world. It's the people, which is completely different, and it's easy for people to understand. Then, I could own a shop there in Grand Theft Auto, in theory, but you can never do that in a centralized platform.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not to say it's impossible to do, but that's a completely different business model. And from an infrastructure point of view, those platforms are not set up to support that. Nor, I would imagine, would shareholders be particularly fond of splitting whatever amounts of revenue that is driven into the platform with, the content creators and, the community or what, and everyone else that's kind of part of the platform. So it's a different business model. It's a centralized business model. It's a gaming business model, right? It's not a metaverse.
Yeah, and I think another thing to remember here is that gaming is part of the metaverse. It's just one avenue of the metaverse, and actually quite
key part.
Yeah, like it's like the internet, right? The internet is not just gaming; it's like lots of different things within the internet. That isn't just any one thing. So I think that's a good way to think about it as well. Gaming will be a part of it, 100%, but it's not all of it.
No, absolutely. A metaverse should blend together the ability for different types of individuals who have different interests and characteristics, to enjoy a shared space. I talked about it being, a platform of collective imagination, right?
That was beautiful when you did that as well. I remember, that talk. It's
supposed to be quite smart at times. So, but in all seriousness, that is the difference with a metaverse, right? It's supposed to come from the imaginations of the many and not the few. And that's the difference.
Another soundbite from you there. Yeah, you're absolutely smashing it.
Covered a bit from Jeremy Corbyn there, right? Actually, I mean, I'm not massively politically affiliated either way. Probably generally slightly more left leaning. Not that it matters, but I would say that in many cases, in many scenarios, I do probably fit. Lean towards strength in numbers, collective growth, collective kind of responsibility, collective imagination, these types of things. And I think actually, whether people realize it or not, the brain is hardwired to exist in the social, in the collective. We've actually, neurologically speaking, there are actually parts of our brain which are genetically encoded from birth for that. So it makes sense.
Maybe it's
smartest man in blockchain.
Don't know how we got to the brain there, but okay.
Well, it's key. It's key. You cannot detach the metaverse and the reason why the metaverse is such a powerful narrative from the collective unconsciousness and the collective imagination from the brain. It
can't be done. We've tried it. It's just impossible.
It's interweaved. No, it is literally symbiotic. It literally is. Like I say, the brain is pre-wired for the need for social. It's why loneliness and a lack of belonging and so on. If you connect it to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, fundamentally you've got air, water, right? These things. But as you go up them, actually you very quickly on the sort of third tier after the likes of shelter and some of the basic physiological needs get to the need for love and belonging and community. So this is where the metaverse layer comes in. It's fairly, low down on that need hierarchy from Maslow. Fucking look it up.
I'm just smiling so much because, like, at the start of this podcast, you were like, it took a bit of warming up, but now you're cooking. Now you're cooking. You're absolutely smashing it. Like, this is content right now.
You reap what you sow.
You're Mr. Content. And actually, quite paradoxically, is that the right way to say that? Gamers, I think, will be the biggest drivers of the metaverse initially. Yeah. So even though the metaverse is not a game, the reality is it's probably going to be pushed towards gamers to begin with because they usher in new technologies, right?
100%.
So it might start out as a bit of a game or like a bit more gamified than you'd expect, but that's what's going to get people experimenting. They're the people that try these stuff, and that's what we've learned in our own research.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this was, I don't want to say obvious, but apparent to me, probably from 2018, 2019, around the kind of criticality of the need for gamification in, essentially cross verticals, cross business kind of verticals. When I was a teacher, as most will probably know now, I was a teacher for 4 or 5 years in English. I think some of the best results I got was through gamification of the content I was teaching. And there's increasing research which shows that this is quite a powerful method for teaching. So even when you apply it to the likes of, education, gamification has a huge part to play. And I think when you look at the significance of education across every medium really, but in particular a new technology such as the metaverse, such as blockchain or whatever else you want to see, it's critical that we have there are learning modules, and if they can be gamified and made to be fun, the results of those will be much, much stronger.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty common tactic across many industries, I think, as well. Like you're seeing it pop up in lots of different industries. I think the gamification of everything.
Yeah, look at medicine, right? I don't know if you've seen it, but I've seen a few videos where new AR kind of, I want to call them products or applications, right? And, in AR, you've got the human anatomy, right? And you can literally, it's like a human, but with, say, take the skin off. So you've got all the organs, you've got all, basically everything to do with the human biology. And people can, basically in AR, pull shit out, heart, intestines, whatever, and then they will see a descriptor, and it'll be like, this is the fucking aorta, and this is what the fucking aorta does. You know what I mean? How much more engaging is that than opening up a fucking 40-year-old textbook that basically has a page and a half on the aorta? Sorry, but fucking boring, right? We've evolved from that, and I think education is just one example, or medicine, where gamification is absolutely critical. And yeah, look, the narrative has kind of spun towards AI recently in terms of the tech industry, but let's be clear here in terms of impact. Metaverse is not far behind in terms of its disruptive potential than AI.
Yeah, and actually that was kind of my 1.5 misconception, was that the metaverse would be a separate world, something that you just do kind of on your computer, in your own little world. But actually what you've just clearly stated there, AR, you kind of got this mixed reality perspective that actually means that the metaverse is not just on your computer, it's kind of, everywhere.
Yeah, again, I talked a lot about it in the past, but I guess, I still struggle at times to explain, and it really pisses me off because I shouldn't struggle to explain it, because when Bukowski, don't you? I think he said something like, an intellectual will explain a really easy, something really simple in a really hard way, but an artist will explain something really hard in a really simple way. So I guess it's kind of that sort of lean towards the fact that don't be a sort of uppity twat intellectual, try to lean towards the creative and the artistic response. But I find it quite hard, which just shows, again, I'm not the smartest man in blockchain to explain the metaverse here, because for me, you've got two different layers. You've got the layer of the kind of the interconnected, interoperable, infrastructural layer of what is the metaverse, being the evolution of the internet, right? Everything that is 2D, Web 2.0 in the web and the internet, versus everything evolving into 3D, a la the metaverse. And then you've got the product layer, right? Which is this a metaverse? And really, that's more like a metaverse's characteristics. It's just a fucking virtual world, but it's a virtual world with caveats. Per my opinion, it's got to be community driven. It's got to have community content. It's got to be monetized via the community and the collective, and not monopolized by fucking centralized kind of conglomerates. I've ranted a bit there, but I think I've made sense.
I did forget what I was going to say next, but let's just keep going then, shall we? Because AR, we're on AR. We're on AR. AR. Do you know what, actually, Rob, talking about artistic words, I went to a poetry class last week.
Nice.
Like a poetry night where people, like a poetry slam, I suppose. People will go up and do poetry.
Yeah.
I was too scared to do it, but next time I think I'll do it.
Yeah, do it, man.
But someone was asking, there's this author that goes there and kind of runs it. and it was like someone said to him, "What is the difference between prose and poetry?" And he said something quite nice that I'll share with you. He said, "Prose is like walking, and writing poetry is like dancing." And I just thought that was an interesting way of explaining it.
Yeah,
quite like that.
Yeah, I'll give that. It's nice. It's quite nice.
So misconception 1, metaverse more than a game. Misconception 2, the metaverse will not just be a separate world. Okay, so let's go on to our next misconception, Rob. Is the metaverse inherently tied to cryptocurrencies and blockchain? Like, it seems to be when you read about it, it's always kind of this blockchain angle, and we certainly have that angle ourselves. Yeah. But is that the truth? Is that the defining truth there with metaverses?
I mean, the word truth in itself is a difficult concept to put your head around. I mean, what defines truth? There's an argument that just what defines truth is what history writes truth as. So it's like, it's even difficult to kind of engage with that question, fundamentally in terms of how you phrased it. But to give you my opinion, again, it's that whole thing about difficulty in explaining, but I think
there's a philosophy, isn't there here?
There is definitely. I think that's the really critical point, and thank you for kind of giving me that sort of context and grounding to give my opinions based upon. I think you could argue that, depending on who's viewing it, you could say the metaverse is this interconnected infrastructure layer, and then you can say the metaverse is all these different platforms, and you're lumping together centralized platforms and games and social platforms like VR chat, like Second Life, blah, blah, blah. And then you lump together decentralized metaverses in there as well. For me, it's a case of, you've got like a litmus test. It's like the fucking SEC do with like, is this a security? We've got the Howey test, right? For me, whether or not I would argue it's a metaverse versus a centralized virtual world, there's like there's kind of maybe 2 or 3 really key indicators. 1, is it predominantly community built and driven? 2, are the users, the creators, the explorers, the gamers, are they able to impact the economy in one way or another? And 3, do the users really own the assets and the content they create, or is it actually owned by the platform itself? And depending on the answers to those 3 critical questions, for me, will determine whether or not it's a metaverse. Is that clear?
Yeah, it is clear. I think it is clear, yeah. It's all about philosophy then.
Yeah, I mean, everything comes back to philosophy if you really wanted to.
So it's not all about blockchain and cryptoverse. It just depends on the.
I think often the reason that it perhaps does in my version of what the metaverse is because what blockchain does is it enables for community consensus. It enables for collective voting and decision making in a really provably fair way, and there aren't really many, if any, other systems that enable that. That's the truth, and that's why blockchain is so critical, in my opinion, for it. Because if, for example, you had any sort of central platform that said, "Yeah, this is all fair, and your votes matter," a bit like they do with politics. It's like, but do they fucking really? Is my vote provably getting there? Is it having an impact? Is it even being fucking counted? And I think blockchain is one of the, if not the only, sort of open, really truly open method of data storage that anybody can search. So there's no hiding it. It's provably fair. And I think that's why blockchain is so critical for me, because it's absolutely, indefinitively, you cannot argue against the result of something.
Is this why I suppose a lot of governments are kind of suppressing the blockchain ultimately? Because transparency, is not kind of the priority, is it, for the government? That's not really
it fucking should be, shouldn't it?
Yeah,
let's be honest.
But that's never how it's worked, right?
No, because you get shit like Partygate and whatever else. I mean, we could go on forever about the corruption in politics. I mean, politics has always been corrupt, hasn't it? To go back to one of my favourite authors again, Charles Bukowski, politics is like trying to screw a cat in the ass. It's, let's fucking not really go there too aggressively, because at the end of the day, it's like, I don't ever see, even though it is without a doubt the more kind of absolutely transparent provably fair method of, say, voting, even, for example. Also, it's absolutely inclusive in terms of the ability for people to vote that can't get out of the fucking house. It's also, massively more economical in terms of, I don't need to get in my car and drive to my voting office or whatever it is. You just do it right there on your computer. It is absolutely, no doubt in my mind, the best way to conduct voting. But, it will never be done.
No.
Not in our lifetime, anyway, I wouldn't imagine.
I don't want to get into politics too much, but I'm going to ask you another question. What I find it insane, though, that we sort of have this world where everything seems to be going wrong and like people are just making bad decisions, but nothing is ever done about it in any kind of meaningful way. Like Partygate, for example, where it's like, okay, we all agree collectively this is bad, right?
Yep.
But it's like, okay, yeah, but fine. Like nothing can actually happen about it. So why even don't be bothered about it?
Yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? I
mean, those parties were good, though, I gotta say.
Look, a great time in lockdown, Yeah.
Anyway, Rob, so the next misconception, and I think this more comes from kind of fiction, and actually maybe fiction drives the metaverse in a weird way, because the idea of a metaverse probably come about from fiction originally.
Yeah, it came from. It depends how far back you want to argue this, doesn't it? But I guess over recent years, you could argue that the most sort of, fair acknowledgement would be the actual word itself, coined by Neil Stephenson, right? The author of Snow Crash.
Let me get into my point first. So the next misconception, I think, is that the metaverse will be kind of lead to a dystopia. Be some sort of dystopian world where, you have this idea of where there's wastelands and everyone's just sort of in their little apartments, with a headset on, doing God knows what.
A la Ready Player One.
Yeah, exactly. That's the dystopia, right? Isn't it? Where the world inside the metaverse, brilliant, virtual world, fantastic. But then outside, everyone's decaying, and only the rich have access to it. A bit like WALL-E, right? Everyone's in space and they're all fat and stuff or whatever. Yeah. So, will the metaverse lead to a dystopia? This will be played back in like 1,000 years on the big screens.
I mean, it's like trying to predict whether or not, climate change is going to result in a fucking tidal wave that wipes out the earth, isn't it? I mean, it's impossible to say. It really depends on so many macro and micro decisions. It's like the whole chaos theory thing. It has been said that something as small as the flutter of a butterfly's wing can ultimately cause a typhoon halfway around the world. It's impossible to say. Too much cause and effect in there.
I think the thing I'm getting at with this personally is probably that people look at it and go, right, it could be a dystopia. I think the metaverse could be additive to the world rather than taking things away. So that's
the optimistic kind of, and that's the one that is the viewpoint I prefer to have as well. But for me, this is why it's so difficult to answer what is a metaverse, centralization versus decentralization. For me, any world where you are essentially empowering small amounts of or small groups of people or individuals to make huge, impactful decisions just based off their own kind of value system is a fucking problem. And that's to some extent what we kind of live in now. There's some people with exuberant amounts of kind of power in terms of how they impact, large groups of people. When anything like that, for me, should be as a result of collective decision making, and this is why I put so much kind of value, place so much value on it. For me, dystopia is born from, small groups or individual people making really important decisions that impact the way people live their lives, whether it's digitally or physically, as opposed to groups of people coming up for collective consensus, because, at least then, even if it's a shit result, people are more inclined to accept it because collectively they've made that decision. It's like, you look at Brexit, it was like more or less 50-50, wasn't it? 48-52. Like, I voted against leaving the European Union, but at the same time, it was like, well, the fucking collective decided that, even though most of them were brainwashed. We won't go into that. But this comes again down to that fact around dystopia, right? A lot of those decisions that were funneled towards probably voting for Brexit came as a result of what I think is quite manipulative use of data, product and video placements, as per the kind of study that was done on Cambridge Analytica, right? I'm kind of veering slightly, but I think the point I'm trying to get to is the line between dystopia and utopia, if you like, is extremely thin.
It's pretty, I suppose, ironic, actually, about how the world in the current situation, because we're in theory, the future. We've got technology that is beyond our wildest imaginations. We can do anything. We can travel anywhere at speed into space. But then, like you have those Cambridge Analytica, you have people controlling the narrative and people pushing people to do X, Y, Z through, having access to everybody and being able to just push a message. So it's kind of like an ironic situation where everything, in theory, on paper, we're in a utopia, but in reality, we're in a bit of a dystopia.
Absolutely, yeah. It just shows the kind of how thin that line is. And I think it really is just causing mass identity crises for individuals. It's not a surprise that, anxiety levels are so high, like people's kind of fear of going out into the social, right, and going out into civilization. It's because we've created this kind of fucking, well, I say we, those with power have made, decisions that are positive for obviously their businesses and their shareholders, right? But at the cost of a huge negative impact quite often, and even maybe not purposefully, but as is kind of transpired, groups and communities, individuals, and some cases, fucking countries. So, it is without a doubt, we're on the kind of like, what feels a bit like a precipice there in terms of dystopia to utopia. And I think, frankly, how AI is applied, whilst governments around the world continue to fucking drag their feet around regulation, could quite literally be the fucking, the differentiator, right? It could be the one that it will move. How AI is used and applied will, I think, quite literally be the biggest factor in whether or not we are led down a kind of very powerful dystopian sort of existence or, quite a pleasant utopian one.
It's quite interesting, right, when you say that, because we're in a capitalist society, right? Well, where we live. And that is almost like the idea behind it is taking something from somebody else to become richer, I suppose, right?
In many ways.
So if you sort of use AI for that function, it's just going to get better and better at that. And there's going to be a bigger disparity. If you put AI, that's your job to continue to power the wealthy.
Yep.
Then we are, we're fucked. But do you know what I was thinking as you were talking? I think a dystopia
totally fucked, by the way.
A dystopia sounds more fun, right? Like when you see the sort of, Blade Runner and things like that. That sounds like a more fun world to be in than somewhere that's just really fun and nice.
Yeah, but I feel like it takes you back to the Stone Ages, doesn't it? It takes you back to that consistent need for having your kind of amygdala, which is a part of your brain that is responsible for, triggering your fight or flight general adaptation syndrome. It's all psychology and neurological terminology there, Dan, right? And I think
I'm lost.
It's not fucking great if just walking through a street, you need to be constantly like fucking this with your fight or flight mode going on, which is effectively what Blade Runner and these dystopias are, essentially kind of manifesting.
Well, do you know what I see? I was watching some like YouTube science type thing, because I'm always doing that sort of stuff.
Smart.
Yeah, and they said
Read
actually,
a book.
We are probably still in the kind of 0.1% of the humans in the timeline of when we start to when we finish.
Yeah.
So we're actually really still at the start of the even civilization, which is insane to think about. Like, there's still like a whole 99% of the human civilization to go forward. Like, we've got a long way to go.
Yeah. I don't know where you read that, but cool.
It's an absolute fact. Unless we blow ourselves up, aka Putin, etc. If you're into him or not. I'm assuming you're not into him.
Best mates. Call him at weekend all the time.
Do you know what I would say though, Rob? About what you said actually about big people having influence, right? And I go back to Elon Musk quickly because he, is a people's champion sometimes in like blockchain and freedom of speech and things like that.
Yeah.
But then him saying something small can have such a big impact on markets.
It's too much power.
It doesn't make much sense. Like, it's like if he really is this kind of decentralized figure where it's like, okay, I want to champion this tech.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be able to like move markets just by saying something. And is that quite manipulative? And can we trust Elon Musk?
I mean, look, I'm kind of like, you've got to respect. You've got to respect what he's done, haven't you? You have to. I mean, at least that's how I feel about it. I mean, he fucking gambled it all, didn't he? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, right, this is a guy that, essentially was one of the founders of PayPal, if I'm not mistaken, sold fucking PayPal, decided he wanted to build fucking spaceships, poured all of his money, which was, a decent amount, I think it was like $500 million or something, somebody can correct me on stats here, into SpaceX, building fucking spaceships because he liked it, had 3 failed launches or something, was about to run out of money, and instead of bailing, went fuck it. On his 4th launch, I think, was successful, and then NASA poured fucking several billion into SpaceX as a result. I mean, the fucking balls on this guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, alone, just absolute, no fucks given. Could have gone from having from nothing to having a $500 million sale and got, fuck it, I'll put my feet up and live in like one of the nicest apartments in fucking wherever he wants. To go, now I want to build spaceships. Nearly fucking losing it all. And then finally, when all the chips are down, having fucking getting it done. And I just feel as though, I can understand why people sort of just look up to that.
Again, like, it's like he's got that because he's so successful, like, no matter what he does, people are going to follow him, essentially.
But he's a gambler. Like, there's a fucking gamble. That's a massive gamble. And like, fair enough. But, like, I do feel like sometimes, like, and he is highly functional and autistic, isn't he? And again, but hats off to him for obviously kind of using that as his superpower in many ways. And I have utmost respect for, and I think probably fucking 99% of people in our population have some form of, probably, I would say, cognitive or, neurological challenges in that way or another. I'm fucking definitely on the ADHD spectrum. I've no doubt about that.
No.
Just never diagnosed. So my point is that, like, I think that in that way as well, he's kind of is very personable, right? And people find it quite easy to connect to him. So I find it hard to speak against Elon Musk in any way, shape or form. However, I do feel like he just wakes up some days and goes, I'm just going to fuck about with this. And like you say, it moves markets for hundreds of millions, even maybe billions. And that can make or break people. That's playing quite a lot with people's lives. And sometimes in the good and sometimes in the bad. And I just feel like maybe that's a little bit too much power for any human being to have. I honestly feel like whenever one of my friends said this to me, and at first I was like, shut the fuck up, but I actually quite respected it in many ways. It's like, for me, when anybody becomes a billionaire now, I feel like they shouldn't be allowed to earn any more money. Like, any more money who needs more than £1 billion? Anytime you earn more than anything, it just all goes to charity or all goes to tax, and we'll fucking reinvest it. It's enough. And just give them a little fucking badge or a trophy that says, you've won capitalism. Congratulations. Right? And
who makes that decision though, Rob? Like, that is
no. It's $1 billion. Done.
No, I'm saying that's like a government decision again. That's when you start getting into control, right? Where's the rest of the money going? It's
no,
like
I think if you asked 95% of the planet's population whether that's a reasonable thing to do, they would fucking agree.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like,
right?
You can buy a 500 million yacht, and which is probably the biggest or one of the biggest in the world, and still have 500 million left over. Fuck me. You don't know who needs more money than that. You know what I mean? Like,
I just want 500 quid. That's
anyway,
my dream.
Sorry, I've had a bit of a rant, and I feel as though, I find, like I say, I totally probably respect him in many ways. In one part of my mind, in others, I just feel like could do with him probably stop manipulating some things at times, right? Just for lols.
Yeah.
The world's his playground, right? I think I said this. It's like literally the world is like his playground, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know where I stand on it. I don't like how he can, how he needs to be more responsible, I think, with what he says, because he has the power. But he doesn't have to be, do what you want to do.
It's Degen, isn't it? He's a proper Degen guy. Like, I don't know, like...
Degen.
Part of me loves him, and part of me just feels like maybe a slapper from Mark Zuckerberg won't do him too much, but I don't know, you know.
Well, I look forward to seeing the fight.
He's a Marmite dude, isn't he?
So number 4 then, Rob, is the Metaverse. We got to speed through this. We're running out of time. The Metaverse will be a monopoly.
We talked about that.
Did we?
Yeah, we talked about. Like,
I think we did pre-show, but we based.
No, we talked. My responses talk about, you know, kind of allude to centralization of wealth, you know, monetization of the economies, which is essentially a monopoly, versus decentralization of wealth and economies and governance and voting, which is essentially not a monopoly, right? So it's yeah, we've talked about that.
The answer is no, it will not be a monopoly.
Well, if it's a dystopia, it will be.
The answer is yes, it'll be a monopoly.
Maybe.
Let's just try to move us on. Okay, so the last misconception around the Metaverse, Rob, is that the Metaverse is already here. And maybe it is, but not in its sort of final Pokemon form, I would say.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see the beginnings of the Metaverse, but much like what the beginning of the internet was like.
Yeah,
you've probably seen those graphs which talk about any sort of new wave tech movement, right? You start here, and then you have this meteoric kind of speculative growth, and then it drops kind of way back down. You get this trough of just steadiness, and then start to see steady growth, and then boom, eventually, right? And it does, yeah. It feels a bit like, you know, we had that it was super interest, and then we're sort of like in that little bit of a trough. And
do you know what, actually, Rob? It's a bit like shit, really. That Facebook and Meta have kind of like had such bad PR, I suppose, the last year. We like that, obviously, but generally, like
I don't think I do like that, but
no, but you know what I mean. Like they had the imagination of the public, and people were like, okay, this is cool, we like it, and then they had such a kind of, you know, public meltdown and like challenges around it, laying people off, 10,000 people, etc.
Yeah.
And it's like that's just screwed our industry a little bit, you know, because they had the opportunity to kind of take it forward. And I think maybe Apple probably are going to be the ones that need to get involved to really get the public going again.
Talking about the goggles.
The goggles, yeah.
Well, you know, like, I just feel as though Zuckerberg hasn't replicated the model that he had with Facebook, has he? Like, why didn't he do it? I feel like, why didn't he do it that way? Because
they've got the headsets, right? They've got the headsets. They've got the social. They've got the data. They've got everything. They've got the Quest, you know, whatever it is that they use. So like they have all of the tools to make this a reality.
Yeah, but he's basically tried to what it feels like to me is Meta have tried to monopolize the metaverse, and that's like trying to monopolize the internet.
I knew that was a good point earlier. Monopoly. Go on.
But no, I mean, I don't really have much. What they tried to do. It's like what happened with Facebook was it kind of started small. It started with like, you know, just universities, like one university, then more universities, and then like communities, and then country, and then fucking worldwide. Like he's tried to kind of take the worldwide and put it into, that's what Meta starts from there. Like it made much more sense to start kind of with smaller targets and kind of grow organically from there. Because now what I think feels like's happened is that his, you know, or Meta has kind of maybe not quite just got it right for any groups or any communities or any use case. So it was better to maybe target a smaller demographic to begin with and grow from there. So he's gone against what the business model kind of started from with Facebook, which brought so much success, which doesn't make huge amounts. So instead of trying to just fucking buy the metaverse with Meta and basically what is the evolution of the internet, why not do what you did with Facebook and take a good fucking share of the internet, right? And a good chunk of it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit arrogant actually to think that he could just conquer and take that over and kind of that one swoop, and even changing the name to Meta.
Well, yeah, I mean, It's like me just saying, I'm going to copyright the word the. It's a bit nice.
Should we do that?
Is that an option? Is that an idea, isn't it? Yeah, Has anyone? Do you reckon anyone's copyrighted the word the?
Yeah, I don't know.
www.the.com.
So Inagio, that is a. Do we like that or not?
I don't know. Not really.
It's fun to say Inagio.
It is fun to say, yeah.
And it's fun to type as well.
Yeah.
So let's come on then. So we've gone through the misconceptions. Brilliant. Actually, I feel like you have MVP'd this show. You've been so smart, insightful. I don't know where it's come from because usually you're, dull as dishwater, but you've done such a good job this episode. So well done.
You've done all right as well, mate.
Well, I've been trying to keep up with you. Honestly.
Yeah. Lots of polysyllabic words in there for you, wasn't there, Dan?
Yes. So I want to move on now to. I don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. I want to move on to the joke of the month. And Rob, I'll tell you, I did have an idea for the joke of the month as we talked about, but I'm not going to go through with that because I don't think it's the right time for that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I was well up for that.
Was you really?
Yeah.
Well, actually, during the pre-show, you was not up for it, based on your face.
It took me a while to
get it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe next time.
Okay.
Okay, so Rob, the joke of the month is, my life was ruined by my obsession with the metaverse.
Yep.
Fortunately, I had many other lives.
Uh-huh.
Sort of works.
Yeah.
Like video games, I suppose.
Yeah.
I've got lives in different metaverses, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole concept of dying in the metaverse is, a big discussion anyway.
That is next month's topic.
Yeah.
So Rob, what we're going to do then is end with a bit about Cryptoverse, because that's what we do on a day-to-day basis, right? We make a metaverse, and we've talked about the metaverse for too long, I suppose. And now though, it'd be great to talk a little bit about what we're doing, for those that have stuck around to the end. Cryptoverse just held its summer playfest, its second ever playtest. And we
Sorry, I have to check. Go on.
And it was great. I mean, we learned a lot from it. Like, we had people come in, we had thousands of people whitelist. We've had loads of, our coverage has been pretty mad, to be honest with you, given that it was a 2-day event in July where the metaverse was open for a very small amount of time.
Yeah.
It was hectic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I because when you told me the stats, I was quite pleasantly surprised. It felt a little quiet at times during the player test, and I think that was mainly because, I guess most of the promo occurred when we actually started it, for example, and I think you had a bit of a trough, didn't you? Like, people have to download it. It's quite a big file, really, I suppose. And so there was a couple of things for us to think about there, but I think overall, like you say, the metrics have been quite impressive, and there's definite growth from the first play test, which is positive. So want more and more people to come and get involved in the playtest for the eventual launch, and just kind of, my head to the ground in terms of the community response. 9 out of 10 have been really positive responses again. So even those that was a bit like, I didn't quite have the experience that other people seem to have described for one reason or another, I've still been like, but look, I appreciate it's a playtest, and I still like what I see. So yeah, I think the general feedback's been good.
Do you know what, like, for anyone, like, this is an educational show for people making metaverses as well, I suppose. The thing that I think I've learned is that you can't take education for granted. You need to really hammer into people, like, how to access things, how to download, how to do X, Y, Z, what to, like, just like you say, people go into a metaverse, right? Yeah. And this is a pro of probably Grand Theft Auto, is they've got, like, missions to do, right? But the challenge with the metaverse, you have to drill it into people's heads that you're going there. Look, we're not going to tell you what to do necessarily. You are going to be, this is your world. The world is what you make it. So it's like, how do you teach people that to go into a virtual world and not be led, like, not become a robot like you are in real life, kind of thing? This is your chance to start free and do what you want to do, and that's going to take some ideas from you. You need to educate people what they can do, but it's like getting people to do that on their own volition is really challenging, I think, as a marketeer, someone that has to sort of try and drill that into people.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's a definite challenge for you to figure out. And I know that you're always kind of asking me questions and coming up with new ideas around that. But I agree. I mean, it's kind of like anything new to people, it can be a little bit disconcerting. Generally, people stay within the realms of what is their comfort, don't they? Like, what they know. And I think this is new, and it takes a bit more kind of, in some cases, a bit more effort to learn certain things about what it's about and whatever. So, but eventually things will get easier. People, I think, will be more kind of familiar with these environments. So there's definitely positive growth and trajectory for sure. But you are right. Like, it's there's still a lot of education to be done, like we say.
I think so, yeah. And like, because you you think people would plop themselves in the metaverse, and the first thing they probably want to do is hijack a car. Still,
100%. It's like literally. I haven't gone through the stats with because obviously it was only a few days ago with Nico, the lead game dev, about what people did most and whatever, and we maybe you've got a bit of that off Nicola. I don't know, and perhaps we can go through that next time. But there's definitely people still just love jumping in the cars and driving about and being like, yeah, man, it's like GTA. So. I think even those that tried it, most probably didn't even see the experiences or whatever. So we've got to think a little bit about how, even though you don't want to restrict people in the same way as a game would and be like, to go do this mission and that mission, you still need to give people enough juice to kind of go have a bit of a guidance, signposting,
especially at the start, right? As well, like especially when, like you say, people just go in there. You need a bit of signage or a bit of direction, or So from our perspective, we've learned a lot from this play test. It's even from a storytelling point of view, like how we get the message out there, and anyone doing the same thing. It's all about education. It's like, and it's all about trust as well, because when you're asking people to download a file, like you say, of 10 gig or whatever.
It was 3.
Or 3 gigs, sorry, apologies. People are going to have to trust you.
100%, and they also have to kind of commit to the download. I mean, even with a decent internet speed, it's going to probably take you 10 minutes, maybe more, to download that. So, you even also like have to commit to the download. You like sat there waiting and whatever. So, there's definitely like just some innate friction, barriers to entry, which you can't really do huge amounts for. And this is why often, obviously, like, web-based metaverse platforms have obviously been kind of the go-to in the earlier stages, because it's like, you type in and then you kind of away you go in the web browser. But obviously that, for the most part, hasn't proved to be the most successful at this moment, because people aren't necessarily blown away by what they see graphically, because it's a web-based platform. So, I mean, it's what do you call them? Weighing scales, like
weighing.
What do you call them things? Like,
I don't know.
No, they've got a name, haven't they? The
scales, yeah.
Balance. I think there's an actual name for them, not just a weighing scale. I can't remember what it's called, but there you go.
But yeah, so either way for us, we had a successful second play test. We're going to be, I guess, sort of going back to the drawing board now to kind of see what we've learned, get some feedback from the community, and continue to build, I suppose. That seems 100%, that seems to be what it is. Like
optimize, improve based on feedback where possible, and then continue to develop.
The thing for me, Rob, and this is what I want you guys to do, and I know I want you guys to really focus on the users' content creation side of things. Like I want to be on the next podcast. I want to be launching £1 million grant for content creation.
Oh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Where we're giving people £1 million to come in and build out the metaverse. We're going to get the best content creators from all over the world. They're going to create like towns and towns and towns, and wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just content creators. It's like developers too, right? Like you need a decent developer community, because you need people that are familiar with, say, Blueprints, for example. It's a visual programming language, more or less anyone can learn, which is good because it's a low barrier to entry. But all the same, those that are more likely to come and do that are the ones that have had some familiarity with, adding functionality to environments. So that's important too, because otherwise you're just going to end up with like loads and loads of empty rooms and buildings and stuff. And
it'll be pretty, but there'll be like fuck all functionality.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So again, it's the balance of trying to attract content creators and developers to some extent, and there will be crossover, but.
Well, very exciting times, Robert. I want to thank you for your time today. You've been an absolute pleasure, as always.
Smartest man in blockchain.
You are the smartest man in blockchain. I think you proved that today as well. People were doubting you and stuff in the comments. Of like, who's this guy? He's a charlatan. But actually, you've proved them all wrong today with your performance. For anyone listening, we always do a little competition on these where you can like, share, and push the podcast out to get our subscribers up on YouTube, and you can win some Metaverse land. So please do like, share, and subscribe, and leave your comments and give some feedback on Robbie's performance, because I love it. It's great.
A-star.
You're an A-star, yeah. Good luck, Rob. Good luck with your news, and let's all have a great week. Thank you so much for listening to Making a Metaverse. Over and out, motherfuckers.
Au revoir.